Welcome to part 51 of the Rick and Morty app series. We're going to pick up where we left off. We had wrapped up getting our search results here. Before we jump into things, drop a like down below. Hey, say hello in the comments if you've made it this far. This is a super long series, so props to you for dedication, and let's continue onwards. So we have actually completed search such that we're getting results in both our collection view format as well as our table view format. We still need to paginate those results, but on the theme of pagination, aka scrolling down and loading in more results, if you recall, we had not implemented that for the location screen here because it's a table view, and I actually forgot to do so. So we're going to go work on this in this video. So I already got the project opened up here. Let's close this random file that's open, and let's figure out what we need to do. So I am going to actually open up our location controller because I actually don't remember at all what it looks like. So we'll go to core here, and we have our RM location view controller. Now inside of here, we should have implementation of our view at bare minimum. We should have our view if it's not implemented. So it looks like we do have our view, our primary view. We're going to jump into this, and somewhere in here we should have a table view. So we indeed have our table view here. So if memory serves, we implemented the collection view such that we use a scroll view delegate to get the user's scroll position and start loading in more content. We're going to do the exact same thing here, but some things are going to be slightly different, particularly how we reload the table, as well as how we show that spinner at the bottom there. So let's first bring in our scroll view delegate. I don't think I have it here yet. Let me double check. So here is some table view jazz. We don't have it here, so we want to bring it in. So we're going to say this conforms to our scroll view delegates. And what we want is scroll view did scroll, the implementation of this function. And what I can probably get away with doing is copy and pasting this from our other views here. So I'll literally copy and paste it, and we'll see how we can implement this. So here we're saying should show load more indicator. Looks like we don't have this here. So we have is loading more characters. So we don't have this here either. And then we're also trying to reach cell view models. So there's a couple interesting weird things going on over here. So let's take care of what all this jazz does. So I'm going to come back and actually just look at, so actually before I do that, we probably have view models on here. Hopefully we do. So we have our delegate, and we do have a single view model, it looks like. And we have our spinner here, and we're saying table view alpha. All right, we should have cell view models somewhere. So here we're saying viewModel.cellViewModels.count. Okay. So here we need to verify that our cell view models isn't empty. And before we do this, probably intelligent to make sure our view model isn't nil, since it is optional. It appears here. So we'll say let view model is going to be our view model. Thereafter, we are going to verify that the cell view models off of that isn't empty, because there's no need to paginate if we haven't even gotten the original results. And I'm going to kind of start organizing this a little bit. So here we have is loading more characters. We're in locations, so we're going to say is loading more locations. And presumably we have this flag to just capture if we're already in a load operation. This should really go on the view model, but for now I'm just going to toss it here. By default, this is going to be false because we are not loading more locations, which makes sense. Let's continue. So here we have should show load more indicator. This, I would guess, is a computed property to check if we even have results. And it looks like, let's go into episodes, see where the heck this is defined. So here we are basically saying if we have API info .next. So on our model, if that next object isn't nil, which I guess makes sense, and realistically this should be in the view model too, since we're kind of leaking view model business logic-y stuff now. So let me just copy and paste that here, and we will have a whole video where we clean up all this jazz. So we don't actually have API info here. We are holding on to this view model. So what we probably want to do, let's go into here. Inside of here, we're creating locations, and we're holding on to API info inside of here. Let me make sure we are assigning this somewhere from our response. We indeed are, and it looks like we're not actually even handling this error. So we're going to say handle error. We are going to handle all of this stuff later on. And since our API info is inside of there, what I'll actually do is take that computed property, and I'm going to toss it right here. So we're going to say should show load more indicator, and we have our API info here, so we can actually leverage it from there. So back in our view, where we're implementing that scroll view delegate, we are going to read this off of our view model, like so. Next thing, we want to get the actual load more indicator, or rather the URL, I should say. Here, what we're doing is getting that URL and constructing it. We're using a timer to basically debounce, the person scrolling down infinitely, so we don't accidentally go and kick off multiple pagination requests. And then here we are calling a function which is fetch additional episodes, which kind of seems wrong to me that we're doing this in a view, but anyways, let's go and see what the heck this function does. So we're verifying all of this jazz. Let me just copy and paste this, and we'll make sure that our implementation gets updated for the case of locations. So I am going to say paginate for additional locations as needed. We're going to also update this to be locations. Is loading more locations. Is loading more locations gets updated to true since we are loading them now. We try to create a RM request with the parameter URL, which makes sense. And then we try to continue, and we should expect to get RM get all locations response. That's what we're going to try to decode to. Once we have the response, we're going to handle results here, and all of this jazz is going to be different. So I'm going to comment this out temporarily, and let's just make sure this is building. Okay, we're not even building yet, which is no bueno, but let's get this taken care of. So let's see what on earth is the problem here. It looks like this is a problem, clearly, because we renamed that property. Let's try to build again once more. We still have an error, and the error is because we renamed this function here for locations. And we're also going to need to get this the URL off of API info. So let's see if we can do this correct the first time around. So instead of getting the location URL here, maybe what we'll do is we'll pass all this nonsense to our view model. So let me copy this function, and let me actually, before I even do that, I'm going to move this to our view model as well. Our is loading more locations, because when I try to hodgepodge it here, it's going to get incredibly messy. So this is one of those cases where you're better off just doing it the right way from the get-go to save yourself a great deal of pain. So since we moved that there, here we want to read this off of the view model. Alrighty. And then we're going to move this whole shebang over there as well. So let me copy this whole function. And this way, we don't need to expose this API info thing to our view. This API info thing here, we can just keep it internal to our view model. And let me just add some marks here because this object is getting a little large. So cool. So we have fetch additional locations. Everything should be commented out in here still. And in this case, we don't need to create that URL here. We will just copy this. And we can still do the scroll view calculation business here, but instead of saying this off of self, we are going to say this off of our view model, fetch additional locations. And we actually don't even need to pass in the URL. I'm going to amend the signature because we can create that URL directly inside of this object since we have our API info available. So I'll paste that in here. Our next URL string will be our next, and we need to put it as part of a guard let statement. So here we will be saying, let me actually do this before we assign this to true. Here what we're saying is get the next object off of API info and then try to create a URL with whatever that next URL string ends up being. And just to verify this thing is indeed a string. So let's try building. And I definitely need parentheses there for a proper function signature. And we're able to build. So let's see what's going on. So I'm going to actually print what we get back here. So we are going to say print more locations, and I'm going to do more results dot count. And essentially we should be able to scroll down and get more locations now. So let's open up our console over here. I'm just going to make sure it's empty. We'll scroll down to the bottom of locations, and boom, we have more locations. Awesome. We have 20 more locations. Everything should have been updated. We are missing 2 critical steps. Obviously, we don't see the results for what we just loaded in, and there's no loading indicator either. And that's kind of bad because how do I know as a user that something's even happening? So we want to fix both of those. So let's see how we're doing on time. We can probably squeeze them in, so let's do it. So you can see I did a lot of copy and pasting and I abstracted stuff out of the view, and I should have done that for the other views, but like I said, we'll clean up later on. Let's take care of the loading indicator. So let's jump back to our view. And what I'll do here is we want to show that loading indicator once we basically kick off the fetch operation. So we want to make sure we're on the main thread. So this is going to be on a timer. We should still be on the main queue, but just in case, I'm going to say dispatch queue main async, and inside of here, I will go and say self dot, and we're going to say show loading indicator. And this is going to be slightly different from, actually completely different, I should say, from how we handle collection views. Because for collection views, if you recall, we need to set a section footer here. We are going to use a footer here, but we don't need it to be a section footer, right? Table views give us the ability to just define like a table master header and master footer is what I'll call it. So what I can get away with here and just say is our table footer view, hopefully it wasn't deprecated, there it is, table footer view should be a rm table loading footer view. And we haven't created this yet, hence it's yelling at me. So this is just going to be a view that we create. It should self-size itself and just kind of show a activity indicator. So let's create this guy. It's going to go inside of our views folder here. And I guess we can put it in locations since we're not really using it elsewhere, but it is designed to be a generic type of object. So we're going to subclass UI view. So let's paste in our name here. All right, all the defaults looking good. I'll finalize this class, and we are going to say init with a frame. Actually, we want to override the init with frame is what I want to do here. We'll do frame, we'll bring in that required initializer. Whoops, that's not what I want. So we want required initializer. Come on, autocomplete, bear with me, there we are, okay. Let's see, what do we want to do in here? So we want to have a activity indicator. So we'll say our spinner here will be a UI activity indicator view. We're gonna create it with our anonymous closure here. So here we will say our spinner is this guy. We will return said spinner. Also going to say spinner translates auto-resizing mask into constraints is going to be true. And let me actually see if I can just copy and paste our other spinner because we kind of want it to look the same and I don't really want to have to deal with having to go back and forth to figure out why there is visual discrepancy. So I'll literally just copy and paste it here. And this should have been false for translates auto-resizing mask into constraints. Next up, we are going to add this. So we'll say translates auto-resizing mask into constraints for this guy is false as well. And we are going to say add subview. This guy will say spinner.start animating. And we also want to set up some constraints. So I will say add constraints. All right, we will implement this, and this is going to be fairly straightforward. We've done this in basically all of our views already. We'll say ns layout constraints. We want to activate a collection of constraints here, and they will be spinner dot with anchor will be equal to a constant of perhaps 55. We'll have a height anchor also equal to 55. And we just want this to be centered. So we'll say center x anchor is going to be equal to center x anchor, big surprise, and same thing for our y anchor here. Alrighty. And we also want to set up constraints on self, right? So we want to have a height and width. I'm gonna see if I can get away with doing that here. So we are going to say I can actually probably copy and paste this for spinner. And instead of spinner, we're gonna say self here. And what we want to do here, more or less, is just have it be the entire width of our screen. So we're going to say UI screen dot main dot bounds dot width. This works here for our width, and our height, maybe we'll go and do like a fixed of 100. Go ahead and build, and let's see if this guy actually works. So we will build and run. We'll go to locations. We'll scroll it down here, and shoot, I am not seeing our actual spinner down there. So let's see what on earth is being screwed up. So my best bet is that the self-sizing of this is being screwed up. So what I'll do here is I am going to say that the frame is going to be assigned. Let me just assign it back where we're actually assigning our footer view here. So let's see where we have created this guy. And over here, let's just clean this up. So we'll say footer, and I'll also say here our footer has a background color of red, so we explicitly can see it. Let me get rid of my redundant parentheses there. And let's also give this a frame. This is going to be CG rect with a X, Y width and height. So we'll say 0, 0. Here we will say frame.size.width, which is the current location view frame we're in, and height will be 100. Give this a build and run. Go to locations. And dang, we're still not seeing it. All right, so what the heck is going on? Something is going on here. So we're going to continue to debug this together. So it looks like we should have called this function because we're certainly loading more stuff here. And we're saying table view, table footer view. Am I nailing this out anywhere? Nope, I am not. So let's see what the heck is going on. So here I can probably specify the frame directly. So let me actually do that here. There's no need to assign it afterwards. And let's jump back into this view. Let's see what's going on. Let me get rid of this translates auto resizing mask into constraints. Perhaps that is conflicting here. And okay, there's our red view. So we certainly see it now. We didn't need that property. I don't like that there's a little gap, but I guess I'll deal with it for now. So let me go back and change the red color. We don't want that there. Build and run this again. And we go down and boom, we have, whoops, this is the wrong one. If we go down, we should have our location spinner show up. Awesome. So cool. So that is our location spinner, and that is actually the process of getting more results. What we want to do now is get the results back. So let's see if we can stub this out really quickly. Otherwise, I'll break this up into another video. So if I jump into here, let's see what we're doing. So right now we're printing. We are hanging on to the API info, and now that we're in the view model, we can actually do that, which is awesome. Here we are getting the original count, and we're doing a bunch of calculations, and I think the reason we were doing this is because, let me see why we're doing it, is because we needed to append the contents into episodes, and then we were saying did load more episodes with this. I don't remember why we're actually doing it like this. I think the reason we were doing this is because we needed to calculate what cell positions to insert in the collection view update operation. So I think we don't need to do such a complicated thing here. So we're getting the current count, or the original count, the new count, we're getting total. We're doing some index calculations, and then we are appending all of those. I think what we can do is far simpler. So we have cell view models here. I think we can just create a bunch of cell view models and stick them in there. So let's see if I can get rid of all of this junk. And let's see if I can, so we don't have any of these delegate things anymore. We do need to specify this equals false once we are done updating our view models. Let's see, let's get rid of this as well. See if we're able to build. And what I'll do here is a strong self.cellViewModels, and we're going to say append contents of, and this is going to be more results. We are going to compact map this into the appropriate cell view models. So up here, our cell view model type is this. I'll simply grab it. We're going to cheat and return this guy, and it simply takes in a location. All right, so hopefully that should be good. We're basically taking our additional results, we're looping over them and creating appropriate cell view models. And then we want our table view to basically reload. So what I'll do here as like a kind of stopgap to make sure this whole thing even works is on a delay, I will just have this force reload, even though that's like not the proper way to do it. But in the next video, we'll take a look at writing a callback for this. So we'll say now plus maybe like 3 seconds. And then what we're going to execute is a closure. And here we will say self.tableview reload data. I believe a table view reload data does not screw up the scroll offset, so it's not going to kick you back to the top, but we will see. And I will also print out refreshing table rows, just so we know when it gets kicked off. So moment of truth, otherwise known as the moment everything breaks. Let's open up locations. We're going to scroll down, and there is our spinner. Oh, awesome. Look at that. We got more results. Let's make sure they are cool. So I think we're at Earth, replacement dimension. Let's go to the top here. So the top also starts with Earth, but they're different here. And some of these are not YouTube ad appropriate that I can't say. So we have Cygnus 5 expands, Rick's battery microverse. So they do appear to be different. But it looks like we called this multiple times, which I guess makes sense because we're inside of a timer that we never actually invalidate. So we should probably do that. So this timer here invalidates here, but we also, well, I guess we're going to get rid of this. So I'll just leave that as is. Let's continue down. And let's see if we should be able to load even more now. All right, it actually does load more. Now we totally have different results. Make sure it is indeed working. All right, so it looks like we don't have more results now to load, and for whatever reason, we're seeing spinner, and the reason actually is we just never nil it out. So let me pause the video there. We actually got pagination more or less working. We need to clean up the code and also get rid of that spinner when there's nothing else to load. And to do that, we'll see you guys, and by we, I mean literally just me, see you guys in part 52. So appreciate y'all watching. Hit that like button, say hello in the comments. It means a lot for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're new here and haven't done so already. Kind of wild if you haven't. Past part 50. I'll see you in the next part.